Good afternoon. I've had all my decks arrive that I'll be handing out for free to some players here in America. And I'm going to start with opening one of each. I'm starting with the Gagaga Gaial Brand deck. I'm using one of my loose copies since I just already happen to have one open. No need opening a second. I'm going to start off by just showing each of these cards, and I'll go over card by card what they do. And the general strategy of this deck, this is a mono red rush. This deck is hyper aggressive and aims to win in the first 3, 4, 5 turns before your opponent gets to set up. It's definitely one of the fastest decks ever in the meta, at least in terms of aggressive decks go. It's the first deck people think of when they think of 3-turn decks, 4-turn decks. And I'll go over the card effects here momentarily. The general concept is you puke out your hand, you have a lot of stuff that does cost reduction, and then stuff where you can start attacking and then untapping your stuff to attack again. Oftentimes against controls, the first few turns are only ramping. So you just take advantage of that minimal defense in the early game. This one's a fan favorite. This is Deadly Fighter Braid Claw. They have them on a skateboard of sorts. Here's just some tip sheet stuff showing you how to play the game, how to play the deck, stuff like that. If you scan one of those QR codes, it brings to the website with a strategy guide. I'm going to start by going over the key card of the deck. It's this Gagaga Gaial Brand. This card has a mouthful of effects. Its first effect is you may reduce this creature's summon cost by 3. And then if you've summoned another fire creature this turn, you can reduce it by an additional 3. And then if you do, this creature must attack if able, and after it attacks, destroy this creature. The next thing is it's saying it has Star Evolution, which is similar to the evolution from the English days, except for with Star Evolution cards, if it were to leave the field, it will just remove the top card and the creature below will stay. So for example, if it was over a Deadly Fighter Braid Claw and attacked, the card below will stay on the battlefield. The next is just Double Breaker, as you would expect for a large creature. And the final effect is part of what makes this deck scarily aggressive. When this card leaves, untap all of your creatures and they get speed attacker until end of turn. So let's say you had 2 or 3 creatures, you just have been attack, attack, attack. This leaves, the other 2 untap, and whatever's underneath is also on the field, ready to attack. So it's very unfair. Kind of amazed they even made this into a pre-con. This next card is on the Hall of Fame, so you can only have 1. It's a very solid card, but with it being at 1, you don't see it that often. Its first effect is, if it's the only card in your hand, you may summon it for no cost. The other effect is Speed Attacker, as you'd expect in a mono red deck, and then Double Breaker. The final effect is a very strong removal tool. When you put this creature, if you have Fire Civilization in your mana zone, you may draw a card. And then you may discard any number of cards from your hand. For each card you choose to discard, you may choose one of your opponent's creatures that costs 6k or less and destroy it. So if there's a creature to remove, you're just going to draw one and discard it to remove that 6k or less on put. Or let's say there's no creatures, you just get 1 extra card in hand to set up for your next turn. This next card is called Bod Brand. This one has a similar-ish effect to this one in terms of the cost reduction. This creature may cost 2 less to summon, and then an additional 2 less for each creature you've summoned this turn. So and then if you summon it with a cost reduction, at the end of your turn, you do have to pick one of your cards to destroy. So let's say you've summoned 2 cards that turn. That turns this over into a 1 mana, if I'm doing my math right. It goes to 5. And then 3, 1, yep, so it becomes 1 mana. So if it's the 3rd card you summon, it's just a 1 cost. This next card has a couple effects. It's effectively a choose one effect. The first is Speed Attacker. And then the second is a on attack, or on one of your creature's destruction trigger. So if this card attacks, or if any of your creatures die, you get a trigger's effect. The options you can choose from is you can choose a blocker and destroy it, or you can choose a 3-cost creature or less and destroy it, or a 3 or less Thomas Seed and destroy it. And then the final option is you can break a shield. Got a cat jumping on my lap. Alright, the next card is Kotatsu Muri. This one, it's kind of, in English terms, it's kind of like a pincer. It doesn't have that much of an attack gain, but it's a very low-cost double breaker. If you have 4 or more fire creatures in your mana zone, this gets plus 4k, or it's power attacker plus 4k and double breaker. So it's a 2 mana. Effectively, it swings as if it's 6k double breaker. And then the new effects are your opponent's creatures can't attack players that turn their put. So if your opponent has speed attackers, they can still attack into your creatures, which oftentimes is what they'll be doing anyways. They just can't attack into you directly, which could come up against mirror matches and stuff, against other very aggressive decks. And then the last effect is a very big downside, but it can be mitigated with some cards. When this creature attacks, it does not untap at the start of your next turn. However, of course, this card does have the effect. After attack, this pops itself and untaps everything you have. So sometimes that can get around and untap him. Our next card is one of the cost reduction tools. It's a Dachio Churus. When you put this creature, the next beat jockey you summon may cost up to 3 less, and it can't cost 0 or less. In general, I would say somewhere around 60% of this deck, 50% of this deck is beat jockey. Should be slightly over half. I haven't got an exact count, but a lot of your key cards are. So this will work for like the him, most of that bottom row. I'll have to look through the exact races, but it's a little over 50-50. The next one is the Kumitate's Churus. This one has, whenever this creature attacks, discard a card from your hand. If you can't, destroy this creature. But it also has Civ count 3, so if you have 3 or more fire creatures on the battlefield, when this creature attacks, draw a card. And you can trigger that draw before the discard, so if you have at least 3 creatures, you're not worried about him killing himself. At worst, he'll just mill the top card of your deck, since you'll draw it and discard it. This next one's a fan favorite of mine. He's a Ganta on steroids. He's not very aggressive, but he is very good at preventing other decks from playing. He's Testarossa Survival Star. He has when battling, this creature gets plus 2k. So during battles it's a 4k, but while it's on the field, it's treated like a 2k. So it can still die to stuff like Crimson Hammer. And then the main effect that people care about, during your opponent's turn, if your opponent would put a creature in any way other than summoning, your opponent puts that creature into their graveyard instead. In Modern Duel Masters, similar to other card games, there is a bunch of ways of cheating stuff out for either no cost or, like, for example, summoning a creature from your graveyard and so forth. So that shuts down a lot of those effects. This next card is Chuchurus. It's very similar to this one that did cost reduction, except this one makes it so your beat jockeys cost 1 less to summon, instead of just being your next one costing 3 less. And again, about half the deck are beat jockeys. The next card, this is Coda Manma Guard Strike Gilgil Doll. Guard Strike's its first effect, which is a new form of a shield trigger. The way the Guard Strike keyword reads is, when you add this creature from your shield zone to your hand, you may reveal it, and then choose one of your opponent's creatures. That creature can attack this turn. So one benefit of this is, defensively it can stop an attack, and you still get the card in your hand to play the next turn. And this creature's on-put effect is, when you put this creature, return one of your shields to your hand, but you cannot use the shield trigger of that ability. So it's kind of like a Benzo where you can't use the effect. And lastly, the last 2 cards, we've got the Bun Bun Churus, which this one just 1 mana 1k. It does not untap at the start of your turn. Similarly though, you can get around it with this one untapping them. And the last card, we all know this card, Deadly Fighter Braid Claw. It's a 1k power and must attack if able. But overall, this deck, you're playing turn 1, you're playing 1, turn 2, you're playing a 2, and then you're trying to go big on turn 3 to either summon one of these or some combination. Like you might have him in hand, so you bring out like a 1-2 and then drop him once your hand's empty. It doesn't have much of a late game because you do dump your hand in the first few turns, and it can struggle against some stuff like Heaven's Gate. If you break into Heaven's Gate and they summon 2 very large blockers, a lot of your stuff's mandated to attack, or at least Braid Claws are, and he is mandated to attack, so they will oftentimes be forced to attack into a blocker, and then that blocker on the opponent's turn will play clear up and just start breaking more cards. Then you have new cards to replace them with, since your draw power is non-existent. But oftentimes it doesn't matter. You'll have your opponent on the back burner where they can't make any mistakes, because turn 3 you're either having them run out of shields, or if they hit a trigger, they've got like 1 shield left. And likely all they were doing on their turn were removing your cards, so they haven't built their own board yet. Thanks for watching. I'll go and be putting some translations up when I do edit this video. And I will be having a webcam tournament for these decks in particular. You're only going to be allowed to use the Super Strong Deck series of precons. So you'll be able to choose any of the 4 decks. There's Red Zone, which is kind of like, it's very similar to this deck in terms of it being a 3 to 4 turn deck, very hyper aggressive. The one we just went over, Heaven's Gate. This one's like a blocker focus control deck. And this one's a graveyard centric deck, so you do a lot of summoning from grave and stuff like that, and it's kind of mid-rangey-ish, although it also plays aggressive. I would almost say it's almost more like a tempo. It can do everything. Doesn't go too heavy into one direction.